Hello and welcome to the kitchen table. It's Alison Southern here, the team vicar in Melksham Team Ministry. It's good to have you join us today. And today is the 23rd of April, which is St George's Day. He's the patron saint of England. And I thought it would be interesting to just think about the patron saint and what that means to your identity and what it means in terms of faith and whether it has any influence on us. Of course, St George isn't our only patron saint, and we have St Andrews in Scotland, St David's in Wales, and we have St Patrick's in Ireland, all of them important to the identity of the people of those nations, but not exclusively so. St George is also the patron saint of Portugal and Spain and Denmark. Many other places across the world have a relationship with St George. When you think of St George, I think you think of slaying dragons. Maybe you think of princesses rescuing the maiden in distress. Maybe you think of that picture of a sword in his hand, authority, power. And that's the image that many of us have. Of course, the story of St George is very different than that. He was born in Turkey and he moved from Turkey to Syria with his mother when his father died. So he became a migrant, probably an economic migrant, and they moved from one place to the other. The Roman Empire at that time was very, very powerful. And as he grew up, he became part of that Roman army, a soldier within it. And when he was serving as a Roman soldier, he was asked again and again and again to sacrifice to pagan gods. Well, George is reputed to be a Christian from very early on in his upbringing. And when he was asked to sacrifice to pagan gods, he said no, and said no again and again and again, and would be beaten regularly over a period of perhaps 7 years, until finally he was killed for his refusal to offer sacrifice to pagan gods. I find that really interesting. I think it's really powerful in terms of who he was as a Christian, what his identity was, what he would not sell of himself, if you like, even to protect his life. Of course, he's not the only saint that we hear stories of with dragons. There's another story of a saint, St Margaret of Antioch, which is very famous near Wormhill, near Buxton. She was known in medieval days as a Christian who also refused to give offerings or sacrifices to pagan gods. And because of that, she herself was said to have been boiled. But there are images of her with a dragon. It's said that she met the devil in the form of a dragon and she slayed the devil. Whatever the mythology, whatever it is that starts those stories that spread, there's always behind it a very clear message. The message of slaying a dragon is about slaying those who would oppress you. The dragon is used as imagery of something of power with fire, something with might that is to be struggled against, something that comes in and takes what it wants regardless. The Roman Empire moved through nation after nation, you could argue, bringing much wisdom and many skills, but also taking away the very heart of the people that they were invading. So St George as our patron saint, what does that tell us about our own identity, about who we are and how we would stand against things? Do we stand against oppression? Yesterday we talked about Earth Day. We talked about the impact of globalization, the impact of climate crisis, and how that affects the very poorest people in our world, and how the power to influence those people lies in a very small, tight band at the top. The very richest people in the world have the influence over the very poorest people in the world. And as we are thinking about how we serve God, how we are Christians in the world, we have been very clearly asked in the Bible to look after those who are least able to look after themselves. Jesus again and again affirmed, healed, and loved people who were on the lowest part of society. In those days, women, lepers, tax collectors, a whole gathering of people of difference on different parts of the social structures. And Jesus telling us that we need to care for each and every one. So for me, the symbolism of St. George slaying a dragon, I find less powerful than imagining St. George standing up for what he believed in, a man of principle, a man of conviction, and in the midst of authority, standing up for the truth. In Christian terms, we would say that was having a prophetic voice. You stand on the edge and you see what is going on, and you have a voice that speaks into that. You speak truth into difficult situations. So when we think about St. George's Day, it's not about waving flags and maybe claiming an identity which might have been hijacked in some ways, which in some cases the flag of St. George has been by certain groups of people. For me, St. George's Day is like other saints' days, when we look and we think about what the good people that we are looking at and thinking about had to speak to us today. Whether it's St. George, St. Andrew, St. David, they all showed us what it was like to live a faithful life, to sacrifice, to martyr themselves, if you like, for something greater than they could imagine, greater than the struggles around them, the powers around them, but for God. That's a powerful thing, a real conviction. So on St. George's Day, I don't know what you do on St. George's Day, being a Scot, I'm more of a St. Andrew's girl. But however you celebrate it, take some time to think about that migrant, the soldier, the man of conviction, and think about what all those things meant to him and his character and to his faith in God. Take care, and we'll catch up again tomorrow. God bless.